In the Matrix movie, when Agent Smith brings Neo in for interrogation, he says, "It seems like you've been living two lives. In one life, you're Thomas A. Anderson, a program writer for a respectable software company. You have a social security number, you pay your taxes, and you help your landlady take out the garbage. In the other life, you go by the hacker alias Neo and are guilty of virtually every computer crime that we have a law for." He goes on to say, one of these lives has a future while the other does not. If you, like Neo, feel the call to break free from your 9-to-5 matrix, but you feel torn between the comfort zone of the matrix and the uncertainty of entrepreneurship on the other hand, just like Agent Smith says, one of these lives has a future. Stick around to find out which of those lives has the future and which one does not. Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jose de Castro and I'm a psycho-spiritual life coach that helps spiritual entrepreneurs get unstuck by helping them to reconnect to their true authentic selves. So let's get straight down to it. So after Neo starts investigating the true nature of reality and the Matrix, all of a sudden it sets off alarm bells and Agent Smith swoops in and picks him up and brings him in for interrogation. And this is where he brings up the idea of the two lives that he's been living and uses the idea of fear and intimidation in order to try to convince him that the only one of those lives that actually has the future is the life that he's already been living as Thomas A. Anderson in the Matrix. In today's video, I want to talk about the fact that every single one of us actually has our own version of Agent Smith running around in our heads. This is the aspect of the psyche known as the ego. And it's my hope that in understanding what the ego is, what its purpose is, and what its tactics are, it would shine light upon which one of those lives is the life that in fact leads to a more positive future. So let's start off by talking about who is Agent Smith, or what is the ego. So in a nutshell, the ego is thought activity. It's all of our conscious memories, our identifications, our labels, our conscious beliefs. Now, the interesting thing about our ego is that our thoughts appear to us. They are not who we are. It's like a software program like Agent Smith that actually accompanies our minds upon incarnation into physical reality. And so just like Agent Smith is actually just a software program in the Matrix, our egos are similarly a software program that is constantly bringing up thought activity, but that thought activity is not something that we are initiating. We don't choose the thoughts that we think. Our thoughts appear in the larger field of who we are, and who we truly are is none other than pure consciousness or pure awareness. What's interesting to note as well is the fact that even though the ego is not us, it in fact poses as us. And if we are unconscious to the presence of the ego and its tactics and its purposes, then we automatically end up assuming that we are the thoughts and we just obey or go along with the thoughts rather than having a more objective view of these thoughts and understanding that because we are not the ego, we do have the option of choosing to obey or not obey our thoughts or our egos. So now that we know who Agent Smith is, or what the ego is, simply a software program that accompanies our bodies upon incarnation, and we know now that we are not our egos, or we don't have to listen to Agent Smith, let's actually look into the purpose of this ego, or what is the role of Agent Smith within the matrix of the mind. In the movie, Agent Smith stood as a threshold guardian that was placed as a sentinel to prevent people from leaving the matrix. This was apparent through the fact that as soon as Neo starts questioning the true nature of reality and the matrix, this is when the alarm bells went off and Agent Smith had to kick into high gear and bring him in for interrogation. Similar to Agent Smith keeping people trapped within the matrix, our egos also stand as sentinels that are designed to keep us trapped in our comfort zone. And that's because the role of the ego is to ensure our survival, not only physically, but also socially. And so what we are going to find is that as soon as we start questioning whether or not we want to stay within our 9-to-5 matrix, our ego is going to kick into high gear and is going to use certain tactics to keep us intimidated into staying within the confines of the known. So as you can see, this software program known as the ego has the purpose of keeping us in our comfort zone. It stands as a sentinel guarding the outer thresholds and keeping us from evolving past what is known and what is certain. So now that we know what the ego is and what its purpose is, let's talk about the ego's tactics. The first tactic of the ego to keep us within the confines of our comfort zones or of our 9-to-5 matrix is to get us to be overly identified with our persona. The word persona is another word for social mask. And what it is basically sort of like a social media profile where we put out the best of everything that we identify ourselves to be to the world outside of us in order for them to accept us. And so when Agent Smith pulls Neo in for interrogation, he makes an appeal to the idea of his life as Thomas Anderson, where he is a reputable software programmer. And the idea of that being conflated with his kindness that he shows to his landlady. You see, what he's trying to do here is make an appeal to Neo based upon his need for social acceptance. Similar to Agent Smith, our ego attempts to keep us trapped in the comfort zone of our 9-to-5 matrix by appealing to our need for social approval. So when many people start questioning the 9-to-5 matrix and deciding whether or not they want to break free into entrepreneurship, one of the first things that the mind starts doing is bringing up the idea of what will other people think of me? What will my parents think after they'd spent so much money on tuition for me to go to university to get this job in the first place? Or what will my friends and my peers think after I'd thrown away this reputable job and a steady paycheck in favor of entrepreneurship? You see, the ego's need for survival also includes the need for social acceptance. And this is because this has been hardwired into us through thousands of years of evolution, because there was a time in which if we weren't accepted by our society and if we were thrown outside of the encampment, that will literally mean our demise as a result of exposure or being eaten by a wild animal. So not only does our ego try to make us overly identify with our need for societal approval or over-identification with our persona or our social mask as a tactic, but another tactic is the tactic of fear. And so the idea here is that as soon as we start thinking about leaving our 9-to-5 in order to take up entrepreneurship, there's all kinds of fearful thoughts that are going to start arising. Will I be able to meet my payments? Would I be able to pay my mortgage? Would I be able to support my family? What will become of me if this does not work out? You see, the reality of the situation is that what you need to fear is actually the comfort zone. But that is not how the ego works. The ego says that you're not dead yet by staying in your comfort zone, and therefore what we are going to fear is the unknown. The reality could be that leaving your comfort zone and leaving the 9-to-5 in favor of entrepreneurship will actually be the thing that is better for you, but the ego does not operate that way. And so it's very important to note that the ego will always bring up fears related to what is unknown. And the third tactic that the ego is going to try to use to keep you in the comfort zone of your 9-to-5 matrix is logic. Now understand that there is nothing wrong with logic, but the fact of the matter is that logic needs to be balanced with intuition. Logic is of the mind, is of the ego. However, intuition is of the heart. So why is it important to listen to the heart? It's because the heart is the mouthpiece of the higher self or the true self. The ego, remember, is simply a software program that poses as us, but is not us. It is not who we are. And so logic has its place. However, you must be led by the intuition of the heart, and logic must be employed in service of the heart. If you have heard the call that is coming from the heart to leave your 9-to-5 matrix and step into entrepreneurship, understand that that is your higher self calling you onto the path of spiritual evolution. The role of the ego is to act as a nemesis to the higher self and keep you trapped in the comfort zone of stagnation. So then you can think of the voice of logic as the voice of Agent Smith or the ego. And on the other hand, you can think of the voice of the heart or intuition as the voice of Morpheus or the higher self. So we can see in the scene that Agent Smith actually makes a very logical case for why Neo should stay in the comfort zone where he has a good reputation and where it seems like by all of the logic that is placed before him, this is actually the better choice. However, Morpheus is calling Neo onto a path that is actually quite challenging and can seem to be very dangerous. However, we can see that the only path here that actually has a future is the path that Morpheus is calling Neo onto, because it is the path of true freedom and spiritual evolution. So the question that I have for you is this. Now that you know that there is an Agent Smith running around in your head trying desperately to keep you stagnant in your comfort zone through fear, intimidation, and an over-identification with your social mask, does that change anything for you? The fact of the matter is that the vast majority of people stay in the confines of their comfort zones and in the 9-to-5 matrix because they listen to the voice of Agent Smith. It's very important to understand, however, that there is another voice that speaks to us, and that is the voice of the inner Morpheus, the voice of the higher self, the voice that is not as intimidating or scary, the voice that is going to whisper to you and tell you there is another way. That is the voice that is calling you onto a path that, yes, it will be uncertain, it will be challenging, it's not going to be easy, but like Agent Smith rightfully said, only one of those two lives actually has a future. So I'm going to put it out to you today to decide for yourself which of those two lives actually has the true future. Is it the life spent within the confines of the matrix in stagnation and in your comfort zone? Or is it the life of Neo, or the One, the computer hacker that's able to hack your reality and to step outside of the confines of the matrix into true freedom and transcendence? Hey friend, if you stuck around for this long, I admire your attention span and your commitment to your inner growth. Hit the like button if you got some value from the video. Here's another video you might find helpful. Here's a playlist that you might like, and subscribe for more content.